Hello. Not being heard now. No sound on my end. I don't know why there's fireworks.
All right, is that sound? Is that sound now? Somebody give me a thumbs up if there's sound now. I apologize. Robot voice now. Wonderful. Okay. Golly, man. Okay, I'm going to assume that the sound is back now. Okay, seems like we're good now. So my apologies for that. Um, I don't know why my computer was doing that. Let me make sure that my sounds are all good. All right, I'm good. So the Running Rebels go to San Jose, California, a place where they have lost in the past. The Rebels do have a very good record against San Jose State, as they said on the broadcast, which I thought it was the broadcast, it wasn't the most exciting college basketball game, although it was a back and forth affair. But just in terms of star power, both teams were missing a lot of players. And the broadcast, I feel like they were doing the best they could, to be honest with you. They kept telling us how great each coach was, how amazing Tim Miles was, and how amazing Kevin Kruger was the whole time, and how this was just such a great game. And ultimately, whatever. It was a win. Yeah, I didn't think the announcing was great, to be honest with you. But ultimately, it's a Mountain West Network game. What are you expecting? They did an okay time. 20. Thank you, Chris. So 22-5 all time in San Jose. Yeah, UNLV's historically done very well against San Jose State. There was a streak right at the beginning of Kevin Kruger's career where San Jose swept us one year, but I believe he has only lost one time since then. So Tim Miles, that's a very good coach in San Jose. And San Jose State is a program that just really does not have a lot of resources, does not invest a ton into their basketball program. And that's just a tough place to win. And Tim Miles is doing probably as good as you can do in San Jose. So the Rebels go into San Jose, win 77-71. Few players to talk about. One, I thought that this was the best game Jaden Henley has played as a running Rebel. Only 1 of 4 from the three-point line, but 7 of 16 from the field. He had a couple of really difficult fadeaway. Yeah, they were local SJSU announcers. Yeah, when you watch a game on the Mountain West Network, if you're watching it, the team that is the home team will provide the announcers for that game. So I think I don't know if Steve Cofield does the home games for UNLV. I know he has before in the past. But yeah, you're always going to get home announcers. Although I didn't feel like these announcers were biased or anything. They were just, whatever. It's not really worth talking about. They were fine. It is what it is. But UNLV goes. Jaden Henley had his best game as a running Rebel, I think. I'd have to look back throughout the season. I don't think he's had a better game than this. But 7 of 16 from the field, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, where the Rebels were better tonight than they had been. You did get 2 of 4 from Bear Cherry, but that's about to be expected. Julian Rishwain hit both of his free throws. Something that I thought was pretty impressive in this game is the Rebels only went 5 of 15 from the 3-point line. Neverett and Curtis do the home games. Yeah, okay. There you go. That makes sense. Cofield's on the sideline. There you go. Yeah, I think Cofield has done announcing from the booth before, but I know, yeah, you're right. He's on the sideline. Banana Man says, Henley played great, played like a real slasher and made his shots. He did. I thought he was, I think that in the Colorado State game specifically, the staff had made an effort to make Henley the point guard. And obviously, other players were going to take on ball responsibilities. It wasn't just going to be Jaden Henley. But in this game, I felt like he got to play a little bit more of his role as a 2-guard. And I know he's got the size and physicality of a 3-guard, but on offense specifically, I think he works pretty well as a 2-guard. JW Kelly, hi mom, this is my mother. She says Henley was a highlight. Yeah, he played great. I can't complain. He's the player that, you look at and you say, DJ's out. This team it doesn't have a ton of confidence. And Henley stepped up. Happy for him, because he's a guy that first year at Minnesota as a freshman, that was a team that lost a lot. It's team UNLV actually played in Kevin Kruger's second year. And then his second year at DePaul, Henley's, been on some bad teams. So it's good to see Henley kind of stepping up and stepping into the role. He also had 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. He did have 3 turnovers, but when you have 5 assists and 4 steals, I can live with 3 turnovers. So just absolute credit to Jaden Henley tonight. It's a tough thing to do, to step up when your best player's down. And Jaden Henley absolutely did that. Another guy that I want to say as many positive things as I can about tonight was Jalen Hill. Jalen Hill had 17 points, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Happy with him from the free throw line. Absolutely. 9 rebounds, almost a double-double. Had 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block, and 2 turnovers. Jalen Hill was reliable, was steady, he was great. I mean, no complaints at all with Jalen Hill. I think his defense was pretty solid. There's a couple little shaky moments, but overall, Jalen Hill was the leader that this team has had all year. Henley was a +9. Yeah, I mean, the team was absolutely dynamite offensively when Henley was on the floor. But credit to Jalen Hill. I've been critical of Jalen Hill, his play style. I feel like the injury has limited him a little bit throughout the year. He was still a +5 on the game. I imagine that Brooklyn Hicks, I don't have the plus minus yet uploaded. Usually I do it through KenPom, and KenPom doesn't do plus minus. I think Brooklyn Hicks would probably be the only player, maybe Pop, that was minus. Those 2 guys might have been minus, but everybody else seems like they probably had a positive point differential. Rishwain with some timely 3s as well. Yeah, Rishwain, the Rishwain experience this year has been up and down for sure. There have been a lot of games, and he's a gunslinger. Absolutely, Chris. I totally agree with you. I'm surprised that Hicks, apparently Brooklyn Hicks was +4. That surprises me. Pop was -9. Yeah, the defense kind of falls apart. The defense kind of falls apart when Bear goes off the floor. Bear is really turned into a solid defensive player, and you can point out a lot of criticisms about this team, but about Bear in the middle of the season specifically when he was struggling with his offense. But Bear has really come into his own on the defensive side of the ball. I was saying that in the pregame show. Really happy with him, and it's a difficult job transferring from JUCO to Division I, especially in a conference like the Mountain West, is something that takes time to adjust to. We saw that from Rob Whaley last year, and I'm hoping that Bear Cherry can continue coming into his own, because I think he has been throughout the last couple of weeks. The Rebels are missing some top end talent. DJ's been hurt, and DJ, while he's great, isn't among the top 5 players in the Mountain West. But Bear has really stepped up his game and become a valuable player. Where at the beginning of the season, we all thought he was going to be kind of an all-star big man, but in the middle of the season, he's really started struggling. But I think he's found his identity a little bit. Hicks was +4. Yeah, that surprises me. Yeah, let's look at the Bear Cherry stat line. So Bear Cherry finished with 14 points, 8 rebounds. Great, couple of rebounds away from a double-double. I'd like to see him get a double-double rebounding game. I think he totally can. He has before. He's got a couple on the year. Rebounding hasn't always been great with Bear Cherry. And I have been disappointed with Bear Cherry's rebounding efforts, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He doesn't really get a lot of offensive rebounds either. So getting 8 rebounds tonight was definitely really solid for him. And I did love, he had a couple of really vicious blocks. I'm absolutely ecstatic with where Bear Cherry is right now. And, I think if we had Rob Whaley, it could be a really dominating front court. Bears had to do a lot of the heavy lifting kind of on his own, where in the preseason, we kind of expected Rob and Bear to kind of split possessions, kind of like Caleb and Rob did last year. So it's been a heavy shoulder. It's been a heavy burden for Bear to bear. But ultimately, I think that he has come into his own as the season's come to a close here. And shout out to Bear. I think he's a really good player, and I'm happy with his progress. Pop had a rough game. Pop Ndiaye has been, he's a freshman. He's a freshman big man who just moved to the States in 2022. And Pop's had some ups and downs. I don't love Pop's shot selection. He did have one shot attempt today. It was a baseline jumper that really didn't have a chance at going in. He did get 3 rebounds and a block. But Pop's got a lot of room to grow. The team struggles when Bear's off the floor because Bear's a better defender than Pop is, which is not something we were saying a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I'm not worried about this game from Pop, even though he did struggle. Pop's a good player. Whoever the new coach is next year, I hope that we can retain Pop because I think he's got serious talent. I hope we can retain Bear too. I'll shout out Jalen Bedford too. Bedford struggled a little bit with turnovers and kind of sloppy play. He did have 4 personal fouls as well. He finished 6 of 11 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 13 points, did miss his only free throw, had 3 rebounds, all defensive. It wasn't a great Jalen Bedford game. In fact, I would say it was just kind of an okay Jalen Bedford game. The number that kind of worries me with Bedford is he only had 0 assists. So 0 assists is something where I feel like, Bedford, I feel like has the capability of being a primary ball handler, but you can see a little bit of the reason why the staff, hasn't given Bedford as big of a responsibility perhaps as we think they should. And it's because, often he hasn't been able to create plays for others. He's been kind of a solo act. Now, I still think that Bedford is the best scorer on the team. And I think it's an absolute travesty that he isn't starting. And I feel like this was probably the breaking point game because we have to talk about Brooklyn Hicks. Brooklyn Hicks finished with 0 points. He missed his only shot attempt, which was a 3-pointer, grabbed a rebound, had an assist, no steals, had a turnover. Brooklyn was rough, man. I'm a big believer in Brooklyn Hicks. I have been frustrated with Brooklyn Hicks playing time this year. I feel like he's been underutilized. I feel like his skill set hasn't been properly, taken advantage of by the staff. But games like tonight, it's hard to argue that he wasn't, isn't getting as many minutes as he should after a performance like tonight. Now, we don't know all the reasons why Brooklyn Hicks isn't getting into the game as much, but games like tonight are probably a good indicator. I don't know what's going on with him. I feel like he's lacking confidence, and that's really unfortunate because, again, I think Brooklyn Hicks is an excellent player, and I think he's got all the talent and capability in the world. And it bummed me out that we're not getting him on the floor as much as we should. And so, ultimately, hopefully this is just kind of a 1-game thing. But this season, I mean, if you look at Brooklyn Hicks on the season, he's only averaging 4.7 points a game. His scoring high on the season, I think, is only it's 13 points. I just don't know what's going on with him. I don't know he had 16 points against Pepperdine. The last game he had that was a good game was at San Diego State. He had 13 points. But just kind of some perplexing performances from Brooklyn. And I feel like he's great. I feel like he's got all the potential in the world. And I feel like perhaps you can say that the coaching staff haven't put him in the best position to succeed. But you can't start him anymore. I mean, you have to start Jalen Bedford. I didn't think Brooklyn was good on defense. I didn't think he was good on offense. I didn't think he was focused. And hopefully it's just a 1-game thing. And I think Brooklyn Hicks could absolutely stick around and be a guy that scores 10 to 15 points a game in this conference. But something's wrong right now. Hopefully he can bounce back because I really believe in Brooklyn. I think he's a great player, great kid. I'm a big fan of him, and hopefully it's just a 1-game thing. Other things to bring up in this game, other things to go over in this game. We kind of went over everything. I guess I could talk about Julian Rishwain a little bit because we had a little bit of discussion going on. Chris Wynn says, just talking about this game, absolutely. Julian is inconsistent, often a no-show over the entire season, 100%. Yeah, and because Banana Man said, I scream at my TV anytime Julian Rishwain pulls up. The big problem with Julian Rishwain is shot quality. He takes very difficult shots. And often the threes that he takes are very contested. They're like step back threes after a couple of dribbles. Now some of that is because the offense just hasn't generated, Julian Rishwain is a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And he really hasn't gotten very many of those attempts because the offense just hasn't created a ton for him this year. And a lot of that's because DJ hasn't been getting by guys. Bedford, there really aren't great distributors and playmakers on this team outside of DJ. And you saw that tonight as the team was really sloppy, turning the ball over. But yeah, Martin says, I'm right there with you, Banana Man. Universal UNLV experience. My favorite, and my friend Kevin, who was on the podcast a lot last year, I'm hoping we can get him on again at some point. But one of my favorite moments at the Thomas and Mack of all time was 2011. We were playing a pretty good team. It was in conference play. I think it was Colorado State. It was the game that Anthony Marshall hit the game winner. And Carlos Lopez Sosa pulled up from like 35 feet in that game. And it was the loudest no that I've ever heard from a home arena when a player has shot. The entire city of Las Vegas screamed no. And I think he took 3 threes in that game and made 1, if I remember correctly. But yeah, with Julian, it's all about shot quality for me. If he has room, I feel like it's a good shot. But when Julian gets a guy in his face, he's got okay size at 6'6", but for me, it's all just about, the level of the quality of the shots that he takes. Finzik says Pop gets bullied under because he's thin and doesn't have leverage sometimes. Sometimes just comes with experience. Yeah, Pop needs to put on some weight. He knows that. The staff knows that. And he will put on some weight. And I think that Pop, I hope he sticks at UNLV, regardless of who the next coach is. Because I think that Pop can be a really solid big man in this league. Really solid. I'm a big fan of Pop. He's just a freshman. I mean, he's 18. You cut Pop a break. He's awesome. Same thing happened with Jordan McCabe. Yeah, Jordan McCabe took a lot of very difficult shots. Okay, you mentioned on a post when the game started, why is he not starting? Yeah, why is Jalen Bedford not starting is a good question. I have, said before that it has come out, people talking about what's going on inside the team, that Jalen Bedford and Kevin Kruger don't have the greatest relationship. I think that's pretty obvious when you watch the team. I don't think that Kevin Kruger wants to start Jalen Bedford. They got into a pretty big argument after a game this year. But I feel like after this game, he just doesn't have a choice anymore. He's got to give Jalen Bedford all the minutes he can handle. And Brooklyn has to come in off the bench. It's just Jalen never swing the rock Bedford. Yeah, he's a gunner. Jalen is a gunner for sure. Chris says, bottom line, got to give credit when credit is due, guys. Solid road win without DJ, period, full stop. That said, it doesn't really change anything for UNLV long-term. Yeah, this is putting it really well. It's not like this game changes the fortunes. What it does do is give – I'll say this. I'm going to try and be optimistic. It does give UNLV a little bit better of a chance at getting the 6th spot, which is where you want to be in the Mountain West Conference tournament. That would give you a matchup against I think it would be against the 2 seed or the 3 seed, which is preferable, which in this case would probably be San Diego State or could be Utah State, or no, probably not Utah State, but it's probably going to be San Diego State. So maybe you would rather be in the 7th seed actually, but the 6th seed is generally speaking, the preferable of the team of the seeds for teams that have to play in the first day of the Mountain West tournament that don't get that first day bye on that Thursday. And so, this game does help with that. I have seen a lot of power rankings that have had San Jose State above UNLV in power ranking the Mountain West. I think that this probably puts that to bed. The Rebels' next game is on Friday, and I believe it's the big one. It's Reno at home. It's going to be a big game. It's going to be an opportunity for the team to get a little bit of confidence going into the last stretch of the season, the last couple games, and then the conference tournament. Does this win change anything material about Kevin Kruger at UNLV? No, but it's better to win than lose. Martin says Brooklyn looked out of sorts all game. Yes, he did. If he had more playing time over the season, he'd be much better. Yeah, I think that Brooklyn and Jalen have played. I think there's been probably a bit too much time for Julian on the season, maybe a little bit for Jalen Hill as well. And it's come at the expense of Jalen Bedford and Brooklyn Hicks that they haven't developed rhythms. But ultimately, Finzik says Bedford and Hicks both took off. Yeah, they did. Banana Man says Pop was always supposed to be a developmental redshirt kind of center, and then Ice got phased out. Yeah, I don't understand Ice. I don't understand his place on this roster. I don't understand his place in the program. I have no idea how he's still here because Isaiah Cottrell seems like a really nice guy. He's got physical talent up the wazoo. But for some reason, he and Kruger just have never really gotten along. he hasn't been good in the time that he's played. But if you remember at the start of last year, Ice started over, he was the starter in that Southern game last year, and he was the leading scorer. I think Ice has serious talent, Isaiah Cottrell, but it just has never worked out. Surely Bedford starts next game. Yeah, Bedford I feel like he has to start next game. There's just no way. Running Masshole, welcome to the chat, brother. He says Brooklyn Hicks needed to have a breakout game one of these games after getting the nod, and he didn't. He continues to be incredibly out of control and sloppy. I'm out on the Hicks experience. He's been giving plenty of chances. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that Brooklyn has to be the leash has to be tightened on Brooklyn a little bit. And it's not even that Brooklyn got a ton of playing time tonight. Brooklyn got pulled. I mean, Kevin Kruger made the right decision and benched Brooklyn, which credit to Kevin Kruger for realizing that, but he has to start. I mean, I think that Bedford not starting in the Colorado State game really put us at a severe disadvantage in that game. We were down 14-2 before Bedford came in, and Bedford instantly provided offense. I feel like he needs a heart-to-heart. Brooklyn needs a heart-to-heart with a player that can respect him, with a coach that can respect him. I have a feeling that he's gone at the end of next year, although maybe with a new coach, his tape for his sophomore year hasn't been very good. Maybe we'll be able to keep Brooklyn. I still believe in the talent of Brooklyn. I think he needs to I think he just needs to find his place, in college basketball. Chris brings up Jovan Mooring. Yeah, Jovan Mooring was the gunner of all gunners. Jovan Mooring and Jackie Johnson will forever hold special places in my heart for winning games on the road at Reno, but pretty much by themselves. If you remember the 2017, the Brandon McCoy year, Jovan Mooring got hotter than fish grease and absolutely wrecked Reno, a ranked Reno team at the time. I think they were 21 or 22. So yeah, Martin says, I'm so tired of hearing about how Kevin is not getting along with a player. I feel like he doesn't get along with half the dang team. You're the coach, put your feelings aside and coach some basketball. There's been a lot of players in the Kevin Kruger era that haven't gotten along great with the coach. And that's been really disappointing. Whether it be Keyshawn Gilbert or obviously Keyshawn Hall, who's a stellar talent at UCF right now. Those would be the biggest two examples probably. But yeah, I mean, it's been disappointing. I don't think that player management has always been great under Kevin Kruger. Now, in this new era, like, you're going to lose players to the transfer portal. You are. But I don't know. I don't feel like Kevin has handled player interaction great. I feel like that's probably been a big criticism of his career at UNLV as a coach. Some of that is losing his staff after the first year, which, Kevin was kind of given a rough shake on that one. In case you weren't aware, Hartman left. Kevin was given a staff that was kind of hooked up. His dad kind of helped him put together a staff for his first year, and they all left after Kevin's first year. Took a lot of recruiting with them. And Kevin kind of had to start over from zero. And that's why he brought in Barrett Peary and Coach Williams. And I don't know that Kevin's always had a great relationship with his assistants. I don't think he's always had a great relationship with his players. However, like, Kevin's a good guy. Like, nobody doesn't think Kevin's a good guy. But there's a reason why his team's in the position that his team's in, and he's in the position that he's in, where he is going to be let go at the end of this season. There's really no mentors on this team, especially not the head coach. Yeah. One thing I'll say about this team is that I feel like tonight was an opportunity for them to build a little bit of confidence in themselves. This was a game that they, obviously they're going to beat Air Force. They were going to beat San Jose. They should. Oh my goodness. They almost lost that Fresno State game on the road. But this San Jose State team has played teams tough. They really should have beaten San Diego State twice. They've given good games to teams in the past. And they beat New Mexico. Now, obviously the team that beat New Mexico had both, two of San Jose State's top 5 players were not playing tonight. Now, we were missing DJ, so it kind of equals out, right? But hopefully this game can give them a little bit of confidence. Again, like, we play Reno on Friday. I want to win that game. Like, I don't, obviously, like, I'm done with the Kevin Kruger experiment, but, like, we play Reno, so we got to beat them. Like, and I want our guys having as much confidence going into that game as possible, because it's Reno. You got to shut them down. You got to let them know who's daddy. You got to bring the belt out. You got to, and you got to tell them who's boss. And I'm glad that this game can maybe help the Rebels have a little bit of confidence going into that one. Martin says ESPN has a 51.7% chance of winning against Reno. No line as far as I can see. Yeah, I don't think the lines come out yet. Banana Man says, who's the coach with the glasses? He seems more fired up and calls. I think you might be talking about Coach Williams. I think that's who you're talking about. Yeah, I think at times there has been a little bit of there might have been a little bit of friction between Kevin and his assistants because his assistants may be talking over Kevin a little bit. I think that Coach Barrett Peary would be a better head coach of this team than Kevin Kruger would be. He had previous D1. He was. But I think that, having good relationships with your assistant coach is part of being a good head coach. And I don't think that's always been the case under Kevin Kruger. Yes, I believe Perry was there. If you're talking about Coach Perry, I believe he was there today. No doubt, guys, in any college program need a Pete Carroll or old school mentor type assistant coach. It's UNLV. Yeah, I mean, I also think that part of the problem is that Lon maybe, and I love Lon. Obviously, I think losing Lon was a huge problem for this program. We'd be in a great spot if we could have just ponied up the money and paid Lon whatever he wanted in 2011. But I kind of think that Lon's not on the bench. He's definitely had his hands all over the program, but ultimately he's not on the bench, and so he's not the guy where the buck stops with him. And I feel like maybe some of the assistant coaches, I don't know the relationship that those assistant coaches have with Lon, but you have to having an outside mentor by the team is always maybe not always the best thing when it comes to the relationships that you have with your assistant coaches. And I like Lon. Obviously, I love Lon. Actually, I think Lon. I definitely consider Lon a lot more Rebel royalty than even I do Kevin. But it's been a weird dynamic there. So the game on Friday for Reno, big game. Ken Palm has it as a 68-67 UNLV victory at the moment. Reno is still ranked 71st in Ken Palm, which would make it a quad 2 game for the Rebels. I'm excited to kind of dig into the film on this one and kind of look over the matchup. Hopefully the Rebels can be ready. I think it's going to be a game where I feel pretty similarly about that game as I did about this game. Obviously, Reno is considerably better than San Jose State, but it being a home game, it being the Reno game, I think that the Rebels will probably put forward a pretty good effort. We did lose to Reno in heartbreaking fashion last year at home, which was a big bummer. Really killed the momentum of the program and the team at the time. It took a little bit to build that back up at the end of last year. So I think it's going to be a close game. But as for tonight, very happy with the performance. It's hard to you can't be mad after a win, even if the win was a little sloppy. And sloppy's being, as Martin said, generous. So guys, thank you so much for checking out the show tonight. I'm going to call it there, but I want to make sure that screw Reno, go get that dub, Rebs. I want to make sure that I want to go through all the comments and make sure that I didn't miss any, because I hate it because sometimes they put the comments in out of order. So I don't think I've missed any. If I missed one, go ahead and DM me, and I'm sorry for that. But guys, you guys have an awesome night. Screw Reno, go get that W. It's Reno Hate Week officially. Kevin Kruger hasn't beaten Reno. Steve Alford's beaten Kevin 3 straight times now. So if Steve Alford and the Wolfpack in Reno can beat UNLV, then Alford and Kevin would be 4-4 against each other, which wouldn't be good. Let's keep a winning record against Reno, at least, Kevin, before you make your grand exit from the program. So guys, have a great night. Appreciate you. Let's run.